Hello and welcome to another episode of Unmanned Uncovered, the podcast by drone pilots for drone pilots. I'm your host, Ryan Shaffer. With me today, Mari Covington of XDynamics, who talks about the company's upcoming drone release, the Evolve 2, which is being heralded as not only a top-level cinematography UAS, but also an extremely durable industrial platform. Let's get started. Maury Covington of XDynamics, welcome to Unmanned Uncovered. Thank you for taking the time.
Good to be here. Thank you.
I'd love to talk about the new drone, but I'm going to start out by talking about you a little bit. How did you get into this industry? How did you break in? What sort of things were you doing that got you excited about drones?
You know, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts digital cinematography. So I started in that realm. I worked as a cinematographer for over 10 years. And in part of the package I would bring to a production was drones, once drones became available and more widely used. So I started with an Inspire 1, and I really started digging into, as far as the cinematographer goes, kind of the visible light spectrum, kind of physics-based approach to understanding light and light characteristics, and also had a great interest in drones and what they were doing. And so I started digging into that, and I found XDynamics at a time where they were looking for someone who could kind of have a marketing perspective based on my experience in the industry and also kind of a research perspective. So where those two things meet, I kind of filled that gap and been doing it with them ever since.
What are some of the cool projects you've done as a cinematographer, specifically with an XDynamics drone, unless you haven't used the new one yet for it?
You know, as far as projects go, I stopped working in cinematography, so I'm not creating the projects anymore. I'm kind of behind the scenes, orchestrating and doing the research on the product development side. But we've had them we just had a music video in Sweden shot very recently, and some things kind of coming up, but I have not personally done that.
Is it a hard transition from being behind the camera to directing people behind the cameras?
Yeah. I'm more efficient if I focus on one thing and get that right. But of course, I love to shoot, especially video. So I do kind of shoot some stuff every now and then, share.
So you mentioned the Inspire 1. That leads sort of into my next question. XDynamics has been around since 2015. That year was totally dominated by the Inspire 1 and, say, the Phantom 3. How has the drone industry changed since then from your perspective?
You know, what I see is that the smaller drones, smaller than a Phantom, those are getting more automated. A lot of AI stuff, a lot of recognition. That makes sense because it's easier to use that in a smaller platform. And I think the market for the smaller drones is more consumer-based and not professional, typically. So, because what I find with more professionals is they want less of that. They want control. They want a manual camera. You know, no one puts it on auto in a professional setting in general. So I find that the professional users want to tune everything themselves. I think the market's changed in terms of the AI, though. I think that's coming in, and that'll slowly progress to the larger platforms, I think, over time.
Starting with the original Evolve, that thing was a tank. Would you say that, going back to what you said about getting smaller and a little more compact, was that the focus going into the Evolve 2, making it a little smaller, a little more manageable?
So the Evolve 2 is lighter. The whole design on the upper portion, there are no seams, just one piece of carbon fiber, which makes called a monocoque design, which means like single skin or single shell, like an egg. So we took that, we made it thinner, we changed the geometry of it a little bit. We still have our strength, and that's a common thing that happens in iterations. You know, you try to improve where you can. It is lighter, ever so slightly smaller, but the camera system is bigger. So we're carrying a larger payload, bigger sensor, but the materials are in the drone in totality.
It's not the newest one, obviously, but sticking with the Evolve 1 here, there was innovation involved with that, such as the 64-bit quad-core processor inside the smart controller, which is insane looking at that thing and knowing what it can do. What exactly were you guys trying to achieve with the Evolve 1, not just with the drone itself, but with that type of controller?
First of all, security. So your phone it's like your wallet at this point, right? People in law enforcement have used our drone, and government, and even the individual. You don't want your personal information hooked up to the cloud and your drone. Also, you don't want to be getting text messages and calls while you're flying. So we just eliminated that variable completely, created the dual screen, and that way setups are faster. You pop it open, you start the drone, you're ready to go, everything's there. You don't have to worry about your battery in your phone. So there's a lot of advantages to it, and it's all compact. It's all its own thing. There's no peripherals needed. You don't need a phone to be logged into a certain app or anything like that. Maybe someone else wants to use the drone, they can pick it up and go. They don't need us to download the app on their phone and set up. There's a lot that goes on into that. We wanted your data and your privacy to keep that. That was important to us. And then the speed of just opening that controller and having the two screens there.
So let's move on to the star attraction, the Evolve 2. It's been pushed a little bit. Obviously, a lot of things have been pushed a little bit over the past year. What's carried over from the original Evolve, and what sort of things have changed? I know you touched upon being lighter, more manageable, but what other things have changed, and what did you bring along that worked with the first Evolve?
So our basic formula for the structure and look is the same. Carbon fiber is important to us. The monocoque design is important to us because of the strength. It's just so much stronger than what every other drone is made out of, which is plastic. 30, 40, 50 times stronger. We brought that along. We have more efficient motors. We have the frames actually, the booms are actually thinner than the original Evolve. Magnesium undercarriage instead of the plastic undercarriage. So that magnesium, very light metal, very plentiful metal, and it dissipates heat really well. And it's also has a very low vibration. And so anytime you can eliminate vibration from the drone itself, you're going to save energy. So all those little decisions you make, and the monocoque design by itself won't vibrate or vibrate very little. So vibration translates to loss of power, loss of energy. And the hardest thing about a drone is keeping it up in the air for a long period of time. The batteries are your biggest crutch, I would say. So anything we could do to shave off downtime, drone in the air longer, that's kind of our approach. That's the hardest thing to crack in terms of the technology. Some of the smart features have vastly improved. The biggest change is the camera. It was a tiny sensor, no interchangeable lenses on the first one. Still a good sensor for what it was, but now we have a micro four thirds sensor, and there are a lot of different sensors you could choose from that are micro four thirds. We have one that our priority was performance in low light, cinematic look. So that's how we prioritized how we fashioned the color science and chose the actual hardware sensor. So amazing low light performance, and it has an organic look to it as well. If you're shooting 8K off a micro four thirds sensor, it's going to look kind of crispy, or it just doesn't feel natural. And you want it to look, it's cinematography, it's art. And so a lot of what we've done moving from the Evolve 1 to the Evolve 2 is try to combine that art and science together and enhance the technology through what we perceive to be beautiful, or how it can be used in a way to create something.
Get the data that's most important to you and your organization with unmanned data services from Consortiq. From utility inspections to construction project surveys, our remote pilots will utilize the latest drone technology to give you the most precise and accurate information safely, quickly, and within your budget. Let us do the work for you. Schedule a consultation now at consortiq.com.
Well, you sort of answered part of my question here now as a camera guy. What struck me was the 4K at 120 frames per second. Why did you opt for the better 4K experience, say, over the 8K camera, say, it's the same one as the Autel Evo 2? And you sort of answered it with the cinematic look.
So one big part is the cinematic look. It's not all about super sharp edges. There's something organic that you just sometimes can't explain, but you try to develop it. When we designed that sensor and the color science and how it worked for us, noise, all these things, we're looking at red cameras. We're looking at the Arri Alexa. We're trying to be inspired by the greatest cameras on the planet. They shoot like big Hollywood movies. Also, when you have a sensor that is overloaded with pixels, each one of those pixels is smaller. And each one of those pixels is like a light bucket collecting photons. So if you can have a bigger pixel, you're going to collect more photons. You're going to get a better color fidelity and better shots at night. You lose resolution, but you have to choose something. You can't have it all at a micro four thirds size. So we prioritize that low light performance because now you have 8K, but it looks grainy at night. I think different tool for different job, and no drone can accomplish every single thing. But I think that our users and what we've heard and also what we enjoy is creating something that operates really well at low light, because for us, it's the cinematography, it's the creative part. And there's a lot to be creative with during the evening and the night. So prioritize that.
And saying I'm a camera guy too, I still shoot in 4K, even though I have the ability to shoot in 8K for couple of different reasons. You need the stronger SD card and you don't have much recording time. And plus, at least with a mirrorless camera, you have the overheating problem. So it can't stay on that long. Totally understand that aspect of it. 4K is just cinematic.
Yeah. And one thing we're doing actually to kind of answer that question well is that because our camera system is detachable, we have different camera systems that we actually have a dual IR camera, night vision camera coming out. That'll be going out to we kind of have a pool of users that test our equipment and we get them out in the field, and that's happening in about 45 days. And so that camera will be coming out soon. And we have a high megapixel 6K camera that'll be coming out. And we also have a 10x zoom that's fixed, for inspection purposes. Because our product is built like a tank, we get a lot of interest from the commercial side as well. And then we have another camera that is a very high megapixel count, and it's kind of still hush hush, but we do have another kind of secret camera.
Well, it's another good segue by you. It's almost as if you know what I'm going to ask next. There are a lot of impressive interchangeable lenses and LiDAR capabilities right now. Where do you see the Evolve 2 fitting in today's drone market?
We fit in terms of size, we're in between an Inspire and a Phantom. And the advantages we have over some of the smaller drones, anything smaller than us, is that we have interchangeable camera and interchangeable lenses. So a very versatile piece of gear that is still relatively small in size. Because once you move past us, you're in the Inspire territory. And all respect to DJI, I've owned their stuff. It's a friendly competition. I think there's room for a lot of players, It's good for the market to have more people. But the Inspire is far more expensive, about 3 times the cost to get it set up the same way. And so you have the same size sensor, the micro four thirds sensor, and a much smaller package. So that's where our advantage lies. Built like a tank, size-wise in between those two platforms, and with the versatility of the interchangeable lens.
To build upon that last question, which type of UAS pilot is best suited for the Evolve 2 and for which applications?
In the creation of the Evolve and the Evolve 2, our priority has been cinematographers, professionals. So we build in that direction because we want to create a tool for them they can depend on, that can fulfill their needs in terms of quality. But drone platforms can be used by multiple people. We've had just people who love drones and want the coolest looking drone. I'm biased, but I think ours is the coolest looking. But we've had people that just want a beautiful drone, materials wise and quality of camera. And then we've had the professionals who need it for a shoot. Typically your indie filmmakers, your guys that need something and don't want a long setup time or lug a giant piece of luggage in to set. They can put this in a backpack and get it to set relatively easily, get it in the air quickly, and still have a micro four thirds camera built and tuned for a cinematographer. I would say the professional filmmakers in the indie world and even beyond. And then, of course, we're getting contacted from in the commercial world a lot because we're built the way we're built. It works well in an environment that take a beating sometimes. Like you're doing inspections, you throw it in the back of the car, you keep going. You don't have to worry about breaking.
So when can we expect the Evolve 2 to hit the market, and what do you get in the full package when you do purchase one?
So it will be available. We're fulfilling our orders with our pre-order folks right now, and there's quite a few to get through, and we expect to be done with that and shipping by the end of next month. With the Evolve, you of course get all your props. You get an extra set of props. Of course, the gimbal, the camera, and micro SD card, and a battery and battery charger, as well as a backpack. So everything you need to film is in the package. There's nothing else you have to buy. Of course, there's ND filters, the different things you can get to enhance the experience, because we have a CFast card slot as well as micro SD. we're in the middle of acquiring a certain codec. I can't say what it is, but it's a fruit that grows on the tree and worms crawl in it, and it's associated with Isaac Newton. You can figure that out. You know what codec I'm talking about. So with the CFAS card, that's something you would buy. It doesn't come with the drone, of course, but you'll be able to use those codecs.
All right. So taking sort of your developer hat off here and putting your consumer hat on, what's the most exciting part in that facet?
It's got to be the camera. What we've done with the color science, I'm super proud of. We have an X log, so it's our own internal log profile that gives you a little bit extra dynamic range. The time-lapse features we're developing are really great. We're setting up the drone to shoot astrophotography. So you'll be able to do really long shutter draws. And I think creatives that are familiar with time-lapse photography will have a leg up with this platform. So I think that part of the UI, the time-lapse features, the camera, the quality will be making people really happy with that.
Oh, I know I'm excited already. You're going to send me a free one, right? That's how this works.
We'll let you test one out. We'll send you one to give it a once over. I'm not in charge of free drones.
Understandable. I'm not either, so I get it. How can a drone pilot get their hands on one of these? What platforms are you selling through? Does it go direct through your website?
We're selling directly through our website. If you just go to XDynamics.com, pre-orders are still open now. And when we officially start selling, everything will be right there. You can see all the specifications, all the different things we've designed within the UI. We really kind of do a walkthrough because it is a complex machine, especially the ground station as well. So it's a different take on how we implement those things into the ground station. Another thing I wanted to mention that I like a lot about our platform is that we don't have geofencing either. So it's kind of personal responsibility. You fly where you need to fly, and it's kind of up to you to do what you need to do. But we leave that up to the user.
Obviously, that's been a hot topic in the drone world for the last several months. So I'm sure a lot of users are looking forward to that aspect of it. Well, Maury, I really appreciate you coming on today. I'm excited about the Evolve 2, and I can tell you are too. I look forward to speaking with you again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It was great to share and meet you. And yeah, let's keep in touch. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Unmanned Uncovered. Make sure to head on over to XDynamics.com. That's the letter X, Dynamics.com, and order your Evolve 2 today. This is Ryan Shaffer saying so long and safe flying.